Disney Fairies Pixie Hollow Bake-Off. Adapted by Celeste Sisler. Fairies from all over Pixie Hollow have come to see Tinker Bell and her friends take on the baking fairies in a contest to bake a cake for Queen Clarion's Arrival Day celebration. Welcome to the first ever Pixie Hollow Bake-Off! Bobble shouts as Clank enters Pixie Hollow Stadium in a balloon. Let's meet the competitors, shall we, Clanky? Bobble asks. Presenting the Baking Fairies, shouts Bobble, led by Gelata. Baking is my life, Gelata says, smiling. For the last 399 years, we, the Baking Fairies, have made the same perfect, mouth-watering cake. Do you think we will get to 400? Piece of cake. She looks over at her competition and winks. A little baking humor, she whispers. Gelata knows she will win. Versus, yells Bobble, the non-baking fairies, led by Tinker Bell. Tinker Bell had suggested shaking things up in the kitchen this year. Perhaps a pink cake instead of a white one? Somehow that resulted in Tink leading a team in her first ever bake-off. I'm not too worried, says Tink with a shrug. I mean, isn't baking just tinkering with flour? Tinker Bell thinks this will be easy. Game on, Gelata says. You have 1 hour to bake, chefs, says Bobble. And your time starts. Clank sets the timer to 60 minutes. Now! Step 1. The plan. Tink spreads out her cake design on the table. The fairies gather around. Okay, so it's a 6-tiered cake, says Tink, in which we will visually tell the entire history of Pixie Hollow. The fairies nod enthusiastically. On the other side of the kitchen, Gelata slaps down her blueprint of a perfectly mapped-out cake. The usual, Gelata says. The baking fairies nod. They know exactly what they need to do. They have done it 399 times before. Step 2. The tools. Gelata unrolls her chef's bag, revealing her perfectly ordered baking tools. Meanwhile, Tinker Bell shows off her tinker tool to the crowd. With a flip of her wrist, it becomes part measurer, part spatula, part everything. Step 3. The dry ingredients. Gelata effortlessly juggles her flour and sugar. She gives a dash here and a shake there. The baking fairies work as an organized assembly line. On the other side of the kitchen, Tink uses a giant tinkered mixing device to sift her ingredients together. As the mixture shoots into the air, the girls catch it in thimbles. Step 4. The batter. Gelata combines the dry and liquid ingredients with ease. Tinker Bell mixes water with her dry ingredients in a nutshell. She gives Gelata a carefree expression. She is feeling a win for the non-baking fairies. Step 5. The transfer. Once the batter is mixed, Gelata tosses her pans in the air. Her baking fairies catch them and swiftly set them in the oven to bake. Step 6. The baking. Iridessa stands in front of the table with her team's cake layers. She uses her light talent to quickly bake the cake. Gelata moves down the line of ovens as the baking fairies reveal one perfect cake layer after another. Sensational, scrumptious, yum, Gelata says. Step 7. The final preparations. It's down to the home stretch, Bobble announces. It's do or die time. The baking fairies frost their cake to perfection, and then Gelata checks to make sure each layer is perfect. Whoosh! Vidya zooms around the cake and carves it, giving it a unique shape. Tink and the girls rush to finish frosting and decorating. "Attention, bakers!" Bobble yells. "Whisks down in 5, 4, 3. The baking fairies are already lined up to present their finished cake. One baking fairy yawns. Tinkerbell and the girls work up to the last second. They are tired and covered in ingredients, but happy with their cake. "Hands up, utensils down!" Bobble shouts. "And now for the judging! Remember, contestants are evaluated on presentation and taste. Baking fairies, your cake!" Queen Clarion walks up to sample the baking fairies' cake. "Ah, beautiful as usual," she says. Then she takes a bite. Delicious, as usual. Gelata is pleased with herself and her team. She gives Tinkerbell a smug look. Bobble invites Tink and the girls to present their cake to the Queen. They carefully set it on the table. "It's the most unusual cake I've ever seen," says the Queen. The fairies are nervous. Does the Queen like it? She pauses for a moment and then claps her hands together. "I love it," she says. The girls are so happy. They think they have already won. "All that remains is the tasting," says Bobble. Everyone crowds around as Clank and Bobble prepare a slice for the Queen to taste. Queen Clarion brings the piece of cake to her mouth, and as soon as she tastes it, her eyes pop open in shock. Something is terribly wrong. What does it taste like? The results are in. Gelata's cake is the winner. Clank and Bobble take Tinkerbell and Gelata aside for a post-baking interview. "So, we lost on taste," Tink frowns. "But at least I made a point to Gelata." Gelata responds, "Will I shake things up? Absolutely. In fact, for cake number 401, I have decided to make our frosting half a shade whiter." Tinkerbell laughs. At least she tried.